Harper is a promising journalist. She is prepared to meet his boss first thing in the morning. She suggests a few topics on which she can write an article, and even tries to sweeten the answer with her boss's favorite coffee. This plot doesn't work out for Harper, but she doesn't give up. Dennis takes some time to think about Harper and decides to approach her. Dennis tells her that he's thought it over, and that now is the time for her to shine. He plans to send her to Cove and write an article about a family-owned small-town newspaper that won a Pulitzer Prize. Harper already has information on this newspaper, and the guy whose article won the prize. She gets pumped about this once-in-a-lifetime chance and promises that she won't disappoint, because her promotion depends on this job. The next thing Harper does is call her old friend Jane, who happens to live in that town. She asks her if it is okay for her to come there and stay at her place for 1 week. She thinks it's a great idea, plus they have a lot of catching up to do. Harper asks Jane how her relationship with Howie is going, to which she answers that everything is fine, and then asks Harper the same thing, but sadly for her, it didn't work out, and she and her boyfriend broke up. Harper says that she is going to go to her home, pack up a few things, and immediately head to the city. Morgan Cooper enters the conference room. He compliments his subordinates on the work they have done so far. He knows who is working on which article, down to the last detail. His father, Clifton, stops Cooper for a moment and says that it's time to celebrate because his article won the prize. But Cooper just humbly says that it was only possible because of how his entire team dedicated their souls to this newspaper. And that's why this prize isn't only his. Everyone deserves it. Harper arrives at the conference room. As she enters the room, Morgan confuses her for his secretary and tries to get the bag out of her hands, thinking that it's his lunch, but Harper doesn't give him her bag. Clifton clears up the misunderstanding, and Morgan gets embarrassed. Harper explains that the reason she got there early is that she wanted to get a jump start and figure out the place where she will be working for the next week. Clifton leads Harper to her office. Harper wonders if she made the right choice about her career, but Clifton calms her down and explains that it happens to everyone, and that she should just stick to it and everything will work out. He also compliments her for not giving up her lunch bag to Morgan, and urges her to put him in his place. Harper arrives and meets Jane and her mother, Fenny. Fenny boasts that the newspaper is the heart of the community, and the fact that it exists makes her life easier. Jane asks Fenny if she knows anything about Morgan, because Harper describes him as grumpy. Fenny says that she was Morgan's kindergarten teacher, and she doesn't remember him as a grumpy guy. She adds that it's not been a long time since he returned to his hometown, because for 5 years, he was working in New York. After Fenny leaves, Harper once again asks Jane about the relationship. Jane's answer is still the same, but Harper isn't convinced. She advises Jane not to bring her past relationship experiences into the new one, because it will ruin things. Later, Jane is reading Ask Aunt Hope in the newspaper. She explains that it's a little section where someone else's problems are explained. Fenny says that it has helped a lot of people over the years to open up to each other. It even allowed some young people to choose the right path for their lives. To give Harper an example, she reads an article about relationships. The article says that a relationship isn't a burden that one person must carry on their back. If a couple wants to have a deep love in their lives, they must share the burden and take on the responsibilities head on. As she reads it, this hurts Harper deep down, because her relationships didn't work out in the past. After that, Jane suggests that the first thing they do in the morning is go to the bakery to meet her boyfriend. Harper likes the idea, and adds that she can buy sweets to bribe her entire office. Jane and Harper meet Howie. Harper orders 2 dozen cupcakes and 1 coffee. Howie packs her order and doesn't charge her. He says that she is the sister of Jane, so the order will be on the house. When Jane and Harper leave the shop and start strolling around the city, Harper says that she doesn't understand why Jane thinks that their relationship has a problem. From her point of view, everything seemed perfect. They even end each other's sentences. Jane explains that everything is fine, it's just that she is bored, and worries about what will happen in 10 years. Harper advises her to shake things up, and Jane gets embarrassed. That's when Harper understands that they are stuck in the middle stage, and she makes Jane remember the article, which she read early that morning, that sometimes someone must take the initiative in a relationship. In the morning, the entire team is gathered, including Harper. Morgan enters the room and once again quickly and efficiently compliments his subordinates for their work, and gives them a couple of corrections. That's when Greg says that the Ask Aunt Hope story just came in. He explains that no one knows who writes them, and that's when Harper has an epiphany. She suggests that she include this in her story, about how 1 column of the paper has helped many people. Morgan likes the idea. Harper then suggests that she wants to follow Morgan around, to find out what he usually does and how his work process goes, to include it in her article, but he nervously refuses, saying that he doesn't feel comfortable being followed around. However, she follows him anyway. Harper sees Aunt Hope's letterbox in the office, and comments that it's sweaty and retro. Morgan says that he didn't expect such a reaction from a jaded reporter like her, and Harper gets surprised as he explains that she isn't the only one who did some digging. Harper interviews Morgan as they stroll around the city. She asks if he always knew that he wanted to work in the family business. He passionately explains that as long as he remembers, he always loved the paper, how they thought of different topics to write an article on, and how it would make a difference in someone's life. For Harper, it's puzzling. She explains that she always loved mysteries and how, in the end, all the small parts would transform into something bigger. If she wasn't solving mysteries, she read books, so when she took a first class in journalism, it combined everything she loved into one delicate being. Harper asks Morgan about his article. He explains that it's about a boxball league, and he explains that it has a lot of history behind it. Harper just starts laughing because it's an article about an old man. They arrive at the place. Morgan asks an interesting question. The man tries to remember the reason why he got into the box bowl, and that's when he remembers the real reason behind his decision was to ask Aunt Hope. Harper doesn't let this information slide, and tries to ask him more about it, but Morgan shuts her down. She asks him why he didn't let her ask the questions. Morgan explains that it's his article, and not hers. She is amazed at just how big this one man's ego and hubris are. Harper asks Morgan about his opinion about advice columns. He is a rational man, and he explains that he thinks it's written by responsible adults who give some advice from their experiences, and as a reader, people can trust it or not. The next morning, Fanny, Jane, and Harper are at the restaurant. That's when they notice Morgan in the distance. He notices them too, and comes there to meet Fanny. She introduces Jane to him. Harper and Morgan, like children, get to each other's throats about which French fries are good and which ones are bad, and despite their differences, they agree on one thing they scream out at the same moment. Jane tells Harper that Morgan is single, and she should consider it as an idea, but she just brushes it off because it would be unprofessional behavior. Harper, in the office, meets up with Morgan. She did some digging into Hope's articles and found interesting stories. She asks Morgan if he has the contacts of the people who were mentioned in these articles. He texts them to her. Morgan then leaves and enters his father's office. They argue about whether they should sell the company or not. Morgan objectively refuses the idea because as soon as they sell it, everything is going to change for the worse, and he hates the idea of that. But at the same time, he sees where his father is coming from. But in the end, he just admits that he doesn't trust the buyer at all. Morgan then gets a little frustrated and asks how long Harper will follow him. He gets irritated when he talks about her, and that is exactly when Harper hits a vase and turns it over. Morgan tries to help her, but they are like cats and mice. As soon as they get together, they start biting each other, until Harper gets so irritated that she throws the dirt she collected on the ground. And before entering, she sees Morgan with his supposed ex. This, for no reason, makes her angrier, and she slams her door. Fanny defends Morgan by saying that he behaves the way he does because of a defense mechanism, but Harper refuses. Jane and Howie are playing cards and invite Harper, but she doesn't want to play. Howie asks how the interview with the box ball went. She answers that everything was fine, except for the part where Morgan made sure that she would just stand there and watch them. Harper, just by remembering the incident, gets so frustrated that she decides to take a walk on the beach. Harper's peace of mind is disturbed by Morgan. He saw her on the beach and decided to join her. They talk about their past for a while. Harper explains that she left her hometown because she felt a little confined there, and asks Morgan if that's the same reason he went to London. He says that he doesn't miss London. That's all. The only thing he feels sad about is that he misses his friends and Indian food. Jane texts Harper to bring her favorite ice cream when she returns. Morgan suggests that Harper also try that ice cream, because it's the best one, so they go to the shop. On the way, Harper stumbles, but Morgan quickly catches her. Harper once again asks Morgan about London. He says that there is nothing special about it. He just had lots of meetings, dinners, headlines, etc. He didn't hate working in London, but at the same time, he didn't love it either. He was jealous of his parents, who did the thing they loved in a place they wanted, so that's why he decided to return. Harper also talks about her past, how her father was a principal of the school, and her mother was a mayor. Before she can end the sentence, Morgan guesses correctly. He says that she felt claustrophobic. Harper asks Morgan how he feels about the newspaper being his legacy. He explains that for him, it's the most fulfilling part of his life. Harper listens to Morgan for a while, and confesses that she never thought that journalism could be something so important for someone. Morgan then says that he has read some of Harper's articles, and gives her advice. The way he sees it, she is a technical writer who writes depending on facts. He suggests that Harper should let some of her personality into the articles when she writes. Harper asks Morgan for an example, but his brain freezes, and he can't come up with the right wording before she says goodbye and leaves. Morgan searches for Harper on the internet. That's when his father joins him, and they start playing checkers. Clifton suggests that if Morgan wants to return to London, he can postpone his retirement and find someone who will run the company for a bit. Morgan refuses. He says that he doesn't want to work in London at all, and selling the company would be the biggest mistake of their lives. For him, this newspaper is his father's entire legacy, and he wants to cherish and defend it with his own hands. Harper worries that not one of the interviewers has called her back. That's when Morgan explains that people don't trust her yet, but that could change if she would volunteer. She likes the idea. When they are done with it, Morgan and Harper stand close to each other. She says that she read some of his articles and compliments him on how beautiful and emotionally charged they are. This makes Morgan blush. Then they play a game and bet that if Morgan wins, Harper will have to come to his house for the interview, and if not, she will still have to do the same thing. He made sure that it was a win-win situation for him. Someone calls Clifton. It turns out it's Dennis. He wanted to make sure that Clifton remembered the offer he made about buying the company from them, and he assures them that when he buys the paper, he won't change a single thing. Clifton needs some time before he makes any decisions. Morgan is preparing dinner when Harper enters the yard. She says that she did some research on his grandparents, who started the newspaper, and asks him about their secret. He says that he can't reveal their secrets, but can give her some advice. Morgan says that the reason he got the prize is that his story has an emotional hook. He found one line the interviewer said that was really interesting, and based the entire article around it. Harper says that something similar happened to her once, but she didn't grab onto the line, because it was some words and not a fact. She asks Morgan how he can write such compassionate stories and yet remain neutral at the same time, to which he doesn't have an answer. He helps her write some questions for the next interview, and advises her that it would be better if she did her interview in a less intimidating environment. Morgan asks if it's okay for him to take a look at her notes, and sits beside her. They struggle for a bit, but after some time, they lock their eyes before a phone call disturbs her. Morgan checks Harper out at the park before she has an interview. He says that he will be around the corner. Harper has an informative yet heartwarming interview. Morgan compliments her on it. They start to bond little by little as time passes. They go to the dock, and Morgan shows Harper his grandparents' favorite spot. He explains that in the past, there was a lighthouse there that guided sailors safely, and it became the inspiration for the newspaper to guide lost souls in the right direction. Once again, a call interrupts them. The Washington Post offers Morgan a job, but he refuses. Harper confesses how she would murder someone for that job offer, and is perplexed that he doesn't want it. Dennis calls Harper and asks how things are going. She says that everything is fine, and she even compliments the entire newspaper staff. Dennis gets intrigued and asks her about the team. Dennis gets his answer, and that's when Harper realizes her mistake. She asks him not to try to bribe them, because Morgan will need all the help he can get when his father retires. Dennis says that he won't be able to make any promises. Jane joins the troubled Harper. She explains that her entire career depends on this one job, so she feels the pressure. Jane, on her end, says that she wants to marry Howie, but she hasn't confessed this to Howie yet and wants some advice from Harper. Harper, Clifton, and Morgan are in the archives, searching for a box. It takes some time, but after a while, Clifton manages to find it, which makes Harper happy. Harper is working on the article when Morgan joins her. Harper compliments him and admits that she has learned many things from him. Morgan says that he feels the same way. And after that, he encourages her that no matter what happens in the future, whether her article gets accepted or not, whether it makes her famous or not, there will always be a place for such a hardworking and talented journalist at his newspaper. Harper interviews Fenny with the mystery writer. She tells her the information she has gathered about it, and how it started with Morgan's grandparents, and then Morgan's mom continued it, but she believes that there has to be a third shadow person writing it. Out of the blue, she asks whether Morgan and Cecilia have a serious relationship. This intrigues Fenny. Harper has started to develop feelings for Morgan. Meanwhile, Jane and Howie have broken up. She chases her to find out the reason for it. Jane says that it was over a childish thing. She asked him to plan a next date, but he refused, and that is why they broke up. Harper clams her down and says that everything is fixable. That's when she notices Morgan with Cecilia. Jane comments on her jealousy, saying that she hasn't seen her like this for quite some time. Harper enters the office and goes for Clifton. Morgan and Cecilia join them. The situation gets awkward for Harper after Morgan introduces Cecilia. Harper decides to leave and continue her work. Clifton says that he is considering the offer Dennis made. Morgan agrees that if he doesn't plan to gut the company and fire everyone else, he can also consider the offer, but right now, it seems fishy to him. Harper gets another interview from the couple. Cecilia and Morgan look at them from far away. She and Morgan take a stroll, and along the way, Cecilia admits that they lack true love and breaks up with him. Harper asks Jane to take a look at her article. After she reads it, Jane admits and compliments Harper because it's the best thing she has ever written. All this time together with Morgan has changed her and her way of writing. She's grown as a journalist and as a person too. Jane teases Harper about the fact that she is slowly starting to fall for Morgan. Harper runs into Clinton and Morgan at the dock. They light up the wish lanterns and let them go free. Clinton notices Harper and invites her over. She feels awkward because she thinks she interrupted their moment. But Morgan assures her that everything is fine. He explains that it's an annual thing they do every year for his mother's anniversary. Harper then asks whether Morgan was serious about the job offer because she has started to consider it. She confesses that she doesn't know if the big job in a big office is what she wants from her life, and maybe there is a different path she can take. It is just the uncertainty that continues to eat her up from the inside. Morgan advises that she shouldn't dwell on this thing too much, because it will destroy her in the end. He gives her advice that life isn't only about what's written on the CV. After that, he invites Harper for a date, which surprises her because she thought Morgan had a girlfriend. He explains that they broke up, and this information makes Harper visibly happy, even though she tries to hide it. On the date, they talk about their life-changing experiences. For Harper, it was a time when she broke up with her ex over eggs. He ordered them overcooked and was rude about it, and she decided that the know-it-all guy wasn't for her. In the office, Morgan once again invites Harper on a date. She decides to invite him for sweets and plans to go to the baker's shop. That's when she notices Fenny stealing the letters from Ask Hope's box and follows her. In a hurry, she leaves her purse in the office, and Morgan notices it. He catches up to her at Howie's place. He immediately asks Harper about Jane. He explains that he is sure that he loves her and that she is the one for him. Harper and Morgan listen to him and advise him to confess his feelings to Jane, because until he tells her, Jane won't know the truth. Jane and Harper are in the living room. Jane says that Howie called her and made an appointment. She is nervous and asks Harper to distract her. Harper tells her how she thinks Fenny is the one behind the Ask Hope section of the newspaper. Fenny overhears their conversation, calls someone, and tells them that it's good news, because the mystery will remain unsolved. Clinton is having a conversation over the phone, and he finally signs the documents about selling the company. Morgan overhears this conversation. Dennis immediately notifies Clinton that he is going to make some changes over there and fire some people. What Morgan feared all this time has come true. Clinton protests, but he already sold the company, and there's nothing he can do about it. Harper catches Fenny in the office, and she confesses that it has been her who has been writing the stories all these years. Morgan rushes into the room and confronts Harper. In the heat of passion, he lost his calls. Harper is a spy, and he furiously accuses her that the only reason she came was to gather information about the people and deliver it to Dennis, and he was blind to believe it. Harper gets hurt by his merciless words, leaving Morgan bamboozled. Harper and Fenny are at home. Fenny once again apologizes to Harper for lying, but Harper doesn't care about it. The only thing on her mind is Morgan, and how they hurt each other with their words. That's when Jane returns, excited, and says that Howie finally proposed to her. Harper and Jane talk about it for a brief moment. Jane advises Harper to talk to Morgan, and finally admit how she feels about him. Afterward, she calls Dennis and tells him that what he is doing is morally wrong, and that she doesn't want a promotion like that. Morgan arrives at Harper's place. She immediately apologizes for her harsh words. Morgan accepts the apology, and when he hears her decision to turn down the promotion, he gets angry and urges her to take it because, at this point, there are not many options left. It turns out that the real Aunt Hope was, in reality, Clinton. Morgan overhears the conversation between him and Fenny. He says that he is grateful for all these years that Clinton never dropped Ask Aunt Hope, because it made him feel like his mother was still alive, and some of the advice helped him. Clinton says that it was the same for him. It wasn't easy at the start, after his wife passed, but that newspaper section is what saved him, and they make up and hug. There's a big party going on in town. Everyone is there. Harper meets up with Dennis and refuses his proposal for promotion. She says that they are going to destroy the heart of the community by doing this. Clinton goes to them and meets up with the top executive, who decides that their company isn't going to be absorbed, and that they will have complete autonomy over the place. It's like a magical night for Morgan. The only thing missing is Harper, and that's when he gathers up his courage and proposes to her, and offers her the co-editor position. Harper gets extremely happy, and they kiss.